I am sitting here with my coffee looking at the absolute mess unfolding in the private credit sector, and honestly, it is exactly the kind of slow-motion train wreck I have been warning about. Complexity is a status signal for people who want to feel smart but stay poor. For the longest time, these private credit funds sold a dream. The dream was that you could get high returns without the volatility of the public markets. They told you the assets were stable, they told you the valuations were modeled, and they told you that you could have your cake and eat it too. But reality has a funny way of crushing fantasies. We are now at the point where investor withdrawals are actually surpassing new money coming into these vehicles. This is stage 2 of the cycle, and it is far more dangerous than the industry admits. The whole pitch for private credit was based on a simple, flawed assumption that the money would keep flowing in forever. The reach for yield was supposed to be an infinite game, but the flow has reversed, and now these funds are faced with a math problem they were never built to solve. If you are a fund manager, and you have more people asking for their money back than new investors putting money in, you have to find cash somewhere. You can use your reserves, you can stop lending, or you can borrow. But borrowing has tightened up, and collateral revaluations are hammering these funds, so they are being sucked into the liquidity trap. And that is where the narrative shifts. Private credit stops being a magical, stable world and becomes a market on the downside. And markets on the downside are ruthless. They demand price discovery, and sometimes that price is not 98 cents on the dollar, sometimes it is 65 cents or even worse. And that is what we are seeing, real transactions at deep discounts. This is not hold to maturity, this is fire sale territory. The industry has been trying to avoid this for years, but the cycle does not care about your marketing materials. We are seeing Goldman Sachs reporting more bad loans, we are seeing Fitch reporting record high default rates, and we are seeing major institutions like HSBC dragging their feet on new efforts. These are not random events. They are the breadcrumbs of a systemic contraction. Let us talk about the BDCs, the business development companies. These are the clear windows into the private credit space. They lend to middle market companies that are too risky or too levered for traditional banks. And for years, they were the darlings of the wealth management channels. The pitch was simple: earn high income, avoid volatility, and access institutional credit. But here's the catch. The underlying assets are not truly liquid. Most of these loans do not trade at all. They are private, they are modeled, and when the redemption windows are limited or closed entirely, the illusion of liquidity vanishes. It works perfectly when inflows are larger than outflows, because you can just pay the levers with the money from the new joiners. It is the definition of a Ponzi. But when the redemptions exceed fundraising, the math breaks. The fund can no longer recycle money, it needs real cash. And that is why this is a major stage 2 moment. It is no longer about credit quality, it is about funding and confidence. Investors are finally asking what these assets are actually worth if you had to sell them today. And the market is providing a very ugly answer. The defenders will tell you that these funds are structured to hold to maturity, that they do not have to sell. But that is a lie that ignores the reality of redemption queues. If you cannot fully get out, the queues build up, new investors get scared, and the fundraising dies. And once the fundraising dies while the redemptions keep coming, you are in a liquidity death spiral. You end up selling your best assets to meet the demands, and you are left holding the garbage, which makes your portfolio metrics look even worse. This is how the decline accelerates. You lose liquidity, then you lose quality. And finally, you are left with the losses. And let us talk about the trade volume. Private credit was supposed to be buy and hold. The manager originates holds, collects interest, and gets repaid. That was the fairy tale. But now trading is increasing because funds are desperate for liquidity, and buyers are sniffing around for distressed debt. This sounds healthy on the surface, but it is actually the beginning of the end for the high valuation models, because once debt starts changing hands at 65 cents on the dollar, every other fund holding similar debt is in trouble. If one fund says a loan is worth 95 but a buyer only pays 65, the entire valuation framework collapses. This is what the critics have always called mark to myth. During the boom, nobody cared about the assumptions. Borrowers were paying, defaults were low, and money was flooding in. But now the assumptions are being tested. If a borrower is paying interest in kind, which is just debt masquerading as interest, is the loan really worth par? If the borrower needs an amendment to avoid default, is the loan really worth 98? The answer is no, it is worth exactly what someone will pay for it. And right now, people are demanding discounts. Let us look at the Goldman Sachs situation. They put 2 more companies on non-accrual status. Their troubled holdings are now over 4% of their portfolio. And this is happening while Fitch reports that the U.S. private credit default rate hit 6% in April 2026. A new record. The macro confirmation is here. It is not just anecdotes anymore. It is a trend. These middle market companies were financed when rates were lower and leverage was cheap, and now they are drowning in floating rate debt. They cannot refinance. Their exit markets are shut, and their sponsors are tired of putting more equity into failing projects. So the lenders start amending and extending and pretending. They offer more PIK, more flexibility, and more ways to delay the inevitable. But delay is not repair. The losses are real. They are just being hidden behind accounting tricks. And that is why the big banks are moving away. HSBC is dragging its feet on a $4 billion effort, and AMP is trimming its frothy assets. The smart money is moving up in quality, they are running away from the froth, and you should be doing the same. If you are still sitting in a non-traded BDC because you like the yield, you are likely sitting on a ticking time bomb. The big picture is that private credit is facing three massive pressures. Credit quality is failing, valuations are being challenged by real price discovery, and liquidity is evaporating. And each one of these pressures feeds the next higher defaults lead to valuation questions. Valuation questions lead to redemptions. Redemptions force sales, and sales confirm the lower prices. And on it goes. The danger is that this becomes a global credit contraction. The shadow banking system is hitting a wall, and when they stop making new loans, the real economy will feel the pain. Companies will not be able to borrow. They will cut costs, they will fire people, and they will default. This is not a lemon-style collapse overnight. It is a grinding, slow-motion failure of capital availability. The private credit boom was built on the arrogance that they were smarter than the public markets. They thought they could ignore daily pricing, and now the market is force-feeding them a dose of reality. If the price of these assets is really 65 to 95 cents on the dollar, then we have a long way to go. Stay away from the complexity. Stop chasing the high yields that require you to lock your money up in a black box. Keep your assets liquid, keep your exposure in things you actually understand, and let the fools play the private credit game, because they are going to learn a very expensive lesson. The math is simple. If you cannot see the price, you are probably not getting a good one. And if you are relying on a fund manager to tell you what your money is worth, you have already lost control. Do the work yourself, buy real assets, and avoid the trap of the shadow banking system. This is the reality of the credit cycle. It cleanses the excesses of the boom, and right now, the excess is being purged in the most violent way possible. So be glad you are not the one holding the bag when the music finally stops. Stay boring, because boring is where the wealth survives. Complexity is just a way for someone else to steal your capital while pretending to be a financial genius. You are better than that. You have the patience, you have the perspective, and you know that the only thing that matters in the end is the actual cash in your account, not the fictional NAV on a monthly statement. Stay safe, keep your wallet closed to these shiny new credit products, and watch the cycle play out from the sidelines where it is safe. Because you do not need to be in the middle of the fire to understand that it is hot. Keep your discipline, keep your focus on the long game, and leave the virtual yields to the people who think they are smarter than the market, because they are going to be very, very wrong. I am done here. Coffee is cold and the story is clear. The credit cycle is turning, and it is going to be a long, miserable climb back to reality for anyone who ignored the warning signs. The fundamental problem with the entire modern investment landscape is this obsession with finding shortcuts. You think you can outsmart the market by buying exotic debt instruments that are not traded on exchanges. You think that because your account statement says the value is stable, it actually is. But you are confusing reporting with reality. The reality is that private credit is built on the sands of low interest rates and a flood of institutional liquidity, both of which have evaporated. The $150,000 I have worked so hard to build is sitting in assets that I can sell in seconds. I do not need to worry about redemption gates. I do not need to wait for a board of directors to tell me if I can have my money back. That is freedom. The people trapped in these private credit vehicles are not investors. They are captives. They gave up their liquidity for a few extra percentage points of yield, and now they are finding out that the premium they were paid was not for risk. It was for the total loss of their financial autonomy. It is tragic to watch, but it is also a reminder of why I stick to boring, dry, low-fee index funds. They do not have fancy names. They do not have marketing departments trying to convince me that they are revolutionary. They just do what they are supposed to do. They provide market beta, and that is enough to make anyone wealthy over a 30-year horizon. Stop trying to impress yourself. Stop trying to impress your friends with your exotic portfolio. Your portfolio is not a status symbol. It is a tool for survival and independence. If you treat it like a casino, you will end up with casino results. The wrapper from our previous discussion and the private credit managers have one thing in common. They both sold a story that was too complex for the average person to verify. They both relied on the laziness of the investor. They both counted on the fact that you would not look under the hood. Do not be lazy. Do not be that person who loses their life savings because a brochure looked professional. There is no professional way to lose money. There is only the result, and the result for thousands of people in private credit is going to be ugly. I have been tracking this for months, and every single sign is pointing toward a larger, broader contagion in the financial system. It starts with a few funds having redemption issues, then it moves to forced asset sales, then it hits the banks, then it reaches the real economy. This is the standard sequence of a credit bust. If you are not positioned for it, you are going to get hit. Get your capital out of these junk vehicles. Stop chasing the mirage of stable high yield. Go back to basics. Buy assets that trade, hold them, and ignore the noise. The noise is designed to distract you from the fact that you are being taken for a ride every time you see an article about a new innovation in private credit. Take it as a signal to run the other way. Innovation in finance is almost always just a new way to hide risk. You do not need innovation, you need reliability. And reliability is found in the stuff that has been around for 100 years, not in the stuff that was invented last year by a hedge fund trying to hit a quarterly performance target. I am going to keep my capital safe, I am going to keep my lifestyle simple, and I am going to watch the rest of the world suffer from their own lack of discipline. It is a cold world, but it is a fair one if you play by the rules. The rules are simple. Pay yourself first, live below your means, and never trust anyone who makes money from your complexity. The moment they stop making money, you start losing it. It is that simple. If you can understand that, you are already ahead of 99% of the market. Stay the course. Stay the course. Because that is the only way to win this game, and winning is the only thing that matters. There are no points for being smart, but broke. There are no points for being right, but liquidated. There are only the results, and the results are what count at the end of the day. Keep your head down, keep your wallet closed, and wait for the dust to settle, because the dust will settle. And when it does, the people who kept their capital liquid will be the ones who buy the assets that the losers are forced to sell at 65 cents. That is where the real wealth is made, not in the hype, not in the fake yield, not in the virtual cows, but in the patient, disciplined acquisition of value when the market is screaming in panic. Be ready, be patient, be boring. That is my advice. That is my strategy. And that is why I am sleeping well at night while everyone else is panicking over their monthly statements. See you in the next one, where we will likely see even more of these schemes fall apart. It is going to be a long season, but it is a necessary one. The system needs to be cleansed, and unfortunately, it is going to be painful for the people who refuse to listen. Keep your eyes open, stay safe, and do not let the market break you, because the market does not care about you. It only cares about the math, and the math is currently telling you that the party is over. So put on your coat, take your keys, and walk away. Before the lights go out entirely, your money is your life. Do not let them gamble with it. Stay boring, stay disciplined, and win the long game. Peace.